one of the things that I told those kids from Stranger Things, I was like, this story you're telling, like this was
Right?
my life. You know
Right?
what I mean? Like the thing you're pretending was what actually happened to me. Slightly fewer monsters. Slightly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like you didn't actually like fisticuffs with Vecna, but there might have been a demi-dog or two in there, and
I'm from Arkansas, man. There's weird shit in the woods.
all right. So first off, man, I gotta start out. We are live. I'm really happy for you to do this. My buddy Scott, like knows I'm a bit of a fangirl. I usually don't get like stun locked. I met, Maynard James Keenan's like lead singer to one of my absolute favorite musicians. Met him at a Whole Foods like wine signing, and nothing. But this right now, this is this is a little different. This is so I'm like, ooh, go ahead, go ahead.
I just have to tell you from the very beginning, there's only 35 chambers. There's not a 36th.
See, the 36 chamber is hidden for patrons.
Ah, that's a I'm an absolute kung fu movie fanatic fiend. It's like I know. I wish to create a 36th chamber. One
Yeah,
for the common people. Yes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. That's where that 36th is. And in honor of LA by Night and Jason Carl, I'm busting out my absolute favorite wine for this wonderful occasion. This is the
If not
Saldo.
now, when?
Yeah, Saldo.
Fantastic. Hey, New York starts this Friday. Night falls again.
Ah, that's right.
Mhm.
So, just maybe we'll call this the cold open or whatever. Obviously, new cast announced. Um, what is the best borough in New York City? Why is it Staten Island?
I mean, for me, I only think it's Staten Island because of my allegiance to Wu-Tang
That's
Clan.
right.
Hear
That's right.
the aforementioned bit about that there's only 35 chambers, not
Yeah,
a 36. So,
yeah. So our
straight
logo.
from the slums of Shaolin.
That's
That's
right.
just I don't make the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our so my everyone's got their sub club. Chat gang is chat gang. You don't have to sub to be part of chat gang. It's just about wanting to be part of it. But they named themselves that, and we have this legally distinct emoji here in the Shaolin yellow.
Legally distinct.
Legally
Exactly.
distinct. So
That's the important part. Yes.
so I
I
see.
approve.
I see Chat Gang is here. Of course, my guest is here. I am the magical Mr. Mephisto, the most dangerous man in Age of Sigmar. I am your loquacious lich, leading you through all of the gaming-adjacent topics. My guest tonight is the undisputed B. Dave Walters. How's it going?
It is I. That's the dozens and dozens of my fans going crazy there.
You gotta come on. You gotta be to at least hundreds and hundreds.
Hundreds and hundreds
That's
of
right.
B Dave's fans.
Yeah. Yeah. So do I say the whole thing every time? Is it like a pimp named Slickback or a Tribe Called Quest, or I say B Dave? How do I refer to you?
B Dave is my showbiz name. Once we got it out in the announcement, Dave is fine. When I was training in kung fu, there was 4 guys there named David, and I was the lowest rank of everybody. So there was David, Dave, D, and I was just You know, like they just pointed me and talked, and I knew they meant me. So I was like, okay, that's fine. That's
You
cool.
had to like
Yeah.
duel each other to like level up your
Yeah.
name and stuff. Yeah, that's pretty metal.
It's like Fight Club. You have to earn a name. Yeah.
It's yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Also, there's only the two of us, so I'm gonna know you mean me when you start talking.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. All right, right on. So, I mean, I don't think I really need to sort of lay out all your accolades for Chat Gang here. If they're familiar with my show, like they've got to be familiar. I mean, you just GM'd or DM'd the Stranger Things cast. You've got the Black Dice Society official, sort of Wizards of the Coast GMing. You've been on innumerable other shows, whether as a sort of a staple of the LA by Night cast, as the undisputed Baron of the Valley, Victor Temple, which is actually, if I'm gonna, all my cards on the table, that's where I fell in love with you. That is like kind of like where I became a fanboy. It was this blend of like, I've never liked Adventure before. Yeah, I'll just put it that way. So it's like,
It's
uh,
it's a burden we all bear. I
yeah,
understand.
yeah, and for the real stands out there, they might know you as the Typhoon.
This is going way back.
Yeah,
That's
so
also, just for the record, I need you to know that's how hard I represent. Like it's never far away.
yeah.
It's always just out of reach. I got all my swag here. I got my ring is here. I got my Ventrue rosary. That's what's in here. I got, yeah, it's all. I'm always ready. I'm always ready.
All right, right. Well, like we're probably going to be going through all that. I don't want to make you choose your favorite child, but I think folks probably know you a little bit more from the Dungeons and Dragons side. That could just be a cultural thing. Dungeons and Dragons is huge. It's sort of like the Vanguard. But if you were to like be like, this is the thing most people know you for, what is that? Dungeons and Dragons? Is it the GM? Is it the player? Is it running interviews on was it the Planer podcast? Um,
I've been fortunate that I occupy many worlds. I mean, I'm the only one that is known as both a player and a storyteller for D&D and Vampire and even other things, all at the highest level. So I've been fortuitous. When people come up and they tell me that they know me, that I actually ask, where is it from? There's still a bunch of in a lot of people that even go back to the old days. Ask your Black Geek friend on Geek and Sundry followed me on some of the other things. I do think D&D is the largest profile game, and I've done the largest profile projects there, up to and including being the first dungeon master to run a game on television or for G4. So it's all over the map. But I mean, literally all the time I get hit up by people that are still telling me that they just started LA by Night. It happened today, and how much they love Victor. So I'm like, yeah, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard.
I mean, I don't want to spend the whole show talking about Vampire. I was kind of going to be like, that's the niche, that's the cult classic, and talk a little bit more about
Yeah,
D&D,
whatever.
it's the accessibility of especially 5th edition is, I think, just whether you love or hate Dungeon Dragons. I hate those discourses that always come up on Twitter, but the accessibility is undeniable. There is this sort of vanguard movement in the sort of nerd subcultures, and sort of your unique role in that, I think, is really something pertinent to something that is constantly on my mind, which is this notion of a sort of gaming ambassador. When you work on some films, or when you work on, I've had one film, of course, so I'm totally an expert, but I've got my half an IMDb credit as a production assistant.
Still counts.
Yeah, right. Yeah, enough to say it. I worked on films. I worked on film. There's usually some non-compete type situations. Pretty much, if you go into any of these sectors, and you're able to, like you said, to play an ST, to play a GM, to be a player, to one time you're on G4 Tech TV, or G4 Now, then you're on Netflix, or Netflix YouTube Weekend, and then you're on the LA by Night sort of proprietary World of Darkness stuff, and you're able to go through that. And I think that's something just downright magical about RPGs. Is that unique to just your unique magnetism? Do you transcend all those bonds, or is that you think that's part of the industry or part of the gig? So go on.
Well, I did it on purpose. Like I was quite intentional of diversifying the things I did early so that I couldn't get locked into any one box.
Genius.
That was yeah, it was very intentional to be able to make sure that I could do all of these different things how I wanted to, and not just be, the guy that does that one thing.
Right.
The hardest part I had to push was right at the beginning at Geek and Sundry, where they just knew me as a host, but I knew how to play and storytell too. So kind of getting over that hump, which I finally got to, and then once they saw I could do it, it was just like, so I'm lucky that I still get to host. I still do a lot of stuff for Wizards of the Coast, for Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I'm wearing my
just all of
legally
it.
distinct from Magic the Gathering shirt right now. Trust in your
Legally,
magic.
I mean, so am I. It's a little more, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, got
Uh,
yeah. So go. Sorry, continue. Yeah.
no, so it did not happen at random, and it wasn't coincidental. It was
It
very intentional.
Getting over the hump was a really interesting, turn of phrase because I've been a variety streamer for quite frankly an embarrassing amount of time. We don't
Mhm.
talk about how long, but I've had a podcast about 3. I always tried to align myself to be a like sort of game adjacent or Warhammer adjacent is kind of predominantly known for Age of Sigmar. Like adjacent
I mean,
content creator.
word is you're the most dangerous man on Age of Sigmar.
That's right. That's right. It
What
is.
I'm-
I
what I'm
didn't even
told.
I didn't even self gloss. Someone else coined that for me. So like it's legit. Um,
Hmm.
but see chat going in here. We had some first time chatters too. So like you the Dave and Lofts tweet, fantastic.
I gotta say, I was like, I was disappointed that it took us 50 episodes to get to be Dave and Loft. But when I read it, it was just like, just Gatsby staring wistfully out the window, that's off into the distance. That's how I felt
Uh,
about that. Just the single tear.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
See,
mm-hmm.
there is something magical about like I actually give my parties that I run pun XP. So like if they're rattling off a good pun and the best reaction for a pun is the simultaneous groan laugh where you're not sure
Yep,
and
yep.
so if my coterie ever like or my party ever triggers like that groan laugh, I'm like +1 pun XP. Like, just
When you're equal parts proud and disgusted, that's when you know you've hit it just about right.
right.
Yeah.
That's that
Mm-hmm,
peak dad humor, like right there
mm-hmm,
in the sweet spot. But no, like variety streaming, I just kind of know from my personal experiences. Like you're kind of playing on hard mode, man. Like you
mm-hmm.
played the game on hard mode with this, and you said you got over the hump. Was there a moment where you're like, stuck it? Was it just stars aligning, tenacity? Like how did you transcend that?
But what's interesting is even though I mean I've built a decent following that I'm proud of, if I were to just pick one thing, my following would be much bigger, especially like on social media or something. Like if
Yes.
I only ever talked about a thing,
Yeah.
much larger, because a lot of people don't comprehend nuance. But
Twitter's where nuance goes to die. Yeah. Yeah. No.
yeah,
Continue. Yeah.
Twitter's where nuance goes to be murdered.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm aware of that, but it was more important to me that I got to engage how I wanted to engage and where I wanted to engage. It's I've had opportunities that fell into my lap unquestionably, but even then a lot of that wasn't random.
Yeah.
I knew that I I rant all the time about reputation, maintaining your reputation.
Yes. Yes.
And and and
No.
I knew from the very beginning I wanted to establish 3 things: that I was easy to work with, that I would always be on time and prepared, and that I would always give it my best effort. And I knew if people knew me for those 3 things, I would never want for gigs. And that's true. So and is also is many of the opportunities that have come to me, I've also created plenty of my own too. Yeah, I pushed and made things happen behind the scenes. I created streams, I ran them, I lined up sponsorships, I did all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's been both.
Yeah.
It has been both the sails adjusting to the wind, but also having to row essentially.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing it all. I mean, it's really that reputation thing you're talking about. That's, I mean, in a sort of like butterfly sense, that's how you're here right now. is my buddy saw that, sort of reshared that thread in the backs of I'm not going to reset the drama itself, but in the backs of some drama in our community, you're like, hey, this is straight up, it is. And he screenshotted it. His name's Scott. He screenshotted it, sent it
Hey,
to me, and
Scott.
he's like, he's probably in chat right here. He's like, oh yeah, B-Dave says he always say yes to podcasts. He's like, you should message him. I'm not messaging him. He's too busy. He was like, well, I'm messaging him. I'm like, oh, dude. So you've actually kind of like you've also, I think the unsung side of that is you've created opportunities for other people by being here. I mean, this is an opportunity for me to not just talk to an idol, but to just just kind of and bask in this, this is a moment for me, and that's a great opportunity.
Well,
As dirty millennial, we live for the experience, right? Like we've been playing D&D the whole time. It's all about the XP grind.
I appreciate that, and every time you say those nice things, I'm like, oh, stop it, you. No, keep doing it.
Yeah, that truth comes out.
I've tried to help a lot of people along the way. Most of the things I've done have been behind the scenes, but I mean, I've helped launch lots of streams and lots of careers and lots of podcasts and give people breaks and things. Because I think it's important that when you manage to get somewhere or do something, not to pull the ladder up behind you. And that if it's within my power to make someone else's journey easier, that's what I'm going to do. You and I were talking right before. We both have kids. That's what I look at is my primary obligation to my girls is to make their path easier than mine.
Right.
Not too easy, because you do need some formative hardships. You need to struggle for some things.
Yes.
But in general, to enable and empower their dreams and their bliss. And I try to do that even for other people in this arena to the best of my ability, Well,
see,
yeah.
So
that's karma's a boomerang. That's all.
No, right. No, that's the I mean, that's it. That's ambassadorship, right? That's the anti-gatekeeper, right? That is, and chat gang for those. We've got a lot of new faces, obviously.
Unbelievable.
Broadening out our horizons here. The inimitable, the indisputed, the cross-pollinating, the ambassador. I can just throw lavish praise on you all night, and that could be my whole time with you. But
that'll be the outtake reel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I need you to sign up for Cameo.
Yeah.
Say lots of nice things about me, and I'll just pay for all of them.
Yeah, there we go.
Right.
But the no, that one of the bits of chatting these folks who might not be familiar with my style is there's always a topic, and then there's the hidden topic. What you were saying there about not pulling the ladder up behind you goes into sort of like the real topic of RantCast I want to get into a little bit later on, which is essentially diversity in gaming, having, more importantly, diverse content creators. And if you do have some privilege, not pulling up the ladder, smashing a window and letting people in, like that's, once you get in the room, you hold the door open. That's my perspective. Lord knows the world's hard enough. It's just, trying to do it better. Well, sorry, go on.
That in again, not to rehash recent drama, but
you can go into whatever. You're the guest. You can go into whatever you're comfortable with. It's
not necessary. I said what I said, but it's people know the difference. Let me give you a different analogy that is not directly applicable, but I will show you how it's applicable. One of my favorite sayings is, even a dog knows if it's been tripped over, if it's been kicked. People know when you are trying to do something out of the goodness of your own heart versus when you're doing something to get something back. Mm-hmm. When you're doing something to get something back, that's not kindness, that's commerce. Versus doing something because it's the right thing to do,
right?
Which is its own reward,
right?
So, and people can tell the difference. And I mean, sometimes moment to moment, if you're dealing with a stranger, you might be like, "What's the catch?" Obviously, trust your instincts, wait and see. But over a long enough timeline, you look at someone's track record, you can see who's trying to help the community in the world and who's just trying to help themselves. And to be clear, it is not, I don't ever want to make it seem like I'm some, Mother Teresa-esque saint. Like if I put a person who is unknown on a stream because I'm trying to give them a break. I'm trying to give them a break because I think they're going to perform, like it's, I want the thing we're doing to be good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is not just unchecked altruism, like just pick a person off the street, but it's like, but when you deserve your shot, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that's what I mean.
Well, an unchecked altruism can quickly flip into like sort of self-flagellation too, right? If you're got, you don't have healthy boundaries, if you don't have, you got to take care of yourself, to an extent, and you got to have those healthy boundaries and so on and so forth. So no. So it's I always say that trash inevitably takes itself out. That's the benefit of human trash over well, not that I'm equating anybody to human trash here, but people on a long enough timeline, if they're not on the level, they can't help it. So
this community in particular is largely self-correcting and largely self-policing.
Yeah.
More than any that I've seen. For the most part, if you're gross, you will be found out and it will all come to light. And there have been times where I think perhaps the pitchforks and torches went up a little too quickly for some people, but I've also found those people tend to come back again versus the ones that deserve what they got don't. Mm-hmm. So I still count that as an ultimate, balancing of the books, essentially.
Right.
Right.
Keeping the ledger. Go ahead.
Especially because it is possible to make mistakes. Like I joked about Twitter not comprehending nuance. I mean, someone.
Oh, I'm not joking. It dies there.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you a monster.
Yeah.
But you mess up 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 times. It's like, no, that's just who you are.
Right. And there's
Never
something.
mind.
There's something to be said for malice of forethought, right? Like if you can tell the difference. If it's a slip of the tongue, or you're not choosing your words carefully, or whatever being held to task for something that happened 20 years ago, and you're trying to correct for those sort of things are the ones where maybe our hackles go up a little bit too quickly. But like you said, that if you're a decent person, you're going to approach that with sincerity. You're going to put the effort in to try to course correct so that it doesn't keep happening. We just had to ban someone from one of our Discord communities today. 5 days ago, got the warning, and the mod said back to me exactly, if they stay on their best behavior forever, problem solved. If they do it again, in all likelihood, they'll do it again within a week, and then kick them. 5 days. 5 days. The exact same thing.
Yep.
And it's just like that. It's. I believe I have to believe in people's ability to change and capacity to change, but again, healthy boundaries. You're not. I extend people as much empathy as I'm capable of. I extend people as much compassion as I'm capable of, and up to a point. But then you only get so much of that before now you've run it out. And I think communities are similar. I think everyone's got their thresholds, and there's sort of like a zeitgeist of a community that has similar.
It's an interesting thing happens. When I was building up my Patreon community and our Discord, I told all of my mods exactly what was going to happen, and it's what did happen. And it's when things get gross, when all of gatekeeping, it's all rooted in the same thing, that you can get people who don't necessarily have a lot of power or influence in their own life, and then they get into a group where they do have some power and influence. It could be anything. You have the most magic cards, the most about Pokemon, you have the deepest Star Wars knowledge, you've been playing D&D the longest, whatever. Something that sets you apart as being special. And then a switch flips where you're like, well, but wait a second, all these new people coming in, I won't be special anymore. And then you turn into Gollum with the Precious. Right. And that's when you're like, you can't have the thing that makes me special. It's mine. And it's like, well, it's all of ours. That's the point, And then what?
I mean, that's where you get some of the weird nerd elitism and purity testing. And one of the things that has always frustrated me, and don't get me wrong, in middle school, high school, I did it too. The thing is, I'm not in middle school and high school anymore. I'm a friggin' adult. I've got kids. I got a house. I got crap to take care of. 2 shows I'm running now. You know, like I charity event coming up. Like I have way more important stuff. My identity isn't linked. It's actually Yves Crevuchet, the director, executive director of Take This, which is the charity I'm supporting. Wait, I can self-honk on my own podcast, right? That's good on the tapes.
If not now, when?
July 30th, July 31st is Rantathon, 30 hours live content, over $8,000 in swag to give away for folks donating to Take This. We were talking about what was it called? I think it was called identity blending. It was one of the studies that they're a great mental health charity, do gaming advocacy, predominantly on the video game side, but they cross-pollinate into the tabletop gaming sphere. Dr. B, in fact, has done like applied studies with Dungeons and Dragons and mental health. So Dr. B, pretty sweet. No relation, I'd imagine. They were talking about identity blending.
It's just the Fantastic Hat game. That's the only correlation between the two of us.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it is. I saw a Twitter exchange between you two. I'm like, got to know him at least a little bit.
He's a homie. Yeah, no, Dr. B's great.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, he's coming on. He's coming on that show. We're going to talk about some nerd stuff with that.
Hey.
But they were talking about like I believe it's called identity blending. They're just doing a study on it, and it happens in fascist groups and nerd spaces. And
those spaces are wholly unrelated, right?
Yeah, we don't have a problem with fascism, like a fascist resurgence in gaming. You know, narrator, they do. And that's, I mean, that goes all the way back to that high school mentality, people taking away that thing that makes you special. When you associate your identity so strongly with the thing, you lower your tolerance for other people in it, because it's fight or flight. I'm Gollum, right? I need to protect the precious.
And so anytime you're like, when changing that thing is ruining my childhood, that is the biggest, brightest red flag for those people when they say that. Yep. Yeah. You're like,
how? Like, I've got like, I happen, so mental health visibility streamer. I have 2 things that make me just a mark for impulse purchasing. It's ADHD and bipolar 2 hypomania phases. And I just bought my whole childhood back because now I have a disposable income. Like, that stuff exists. You know, it doesn't go away. Your memories stay. You know, like, how does it ruin your childhood?
As a total aside, I see you have the vampire art over there. You know that was done with practicals. They shot her through stained glass. That's not Photoshop. That was physical. Yeah.
I didn't know about the stained glass thing. I knew it was legit photography, but that's this is my that's my slipcase.
Slipcase.
Right. The other 2 books are up on my headboard, my real bookshelf.
I myself use the special edition.
Yeah, no. I see. This is the. I hope you have one of these. I can't find my Soulbound book right now. I have credit. Oh, there it is. I have credits in the Soulbound book, so I autographed next to my own name in my own book.
It's a flex. It's a flex.
I will, and you know, if you see me at a random convention, I will sign your Soulbound book too.
It's a flex. You've earned it.
It's the ego. The only reason I make a podcast is because I'm a writer. Writers want their names on stuff, and it was either get good at sports, and I'm all right, but not like name on a jersey good, or become a podcaster and release merch with my name on it, and that's, you know, that was just the easier path. So
counts. Yep.
Path of least resistance. Boom.
Yep.
But yeah, so the identity blending, you know, and we're just now seeing some studies with it. We're not, you know, I mean, they're just doing some of these studies, and as soon as I heard that from Eve, I was like, yep, tracks. You know, I'm like, as far as I know, the only nerd community to like sort of jettison their fash problem was furries, which leaves us with exactly 3 communities folks should never fuck with. And I see people spending 1,000 RDP here in chat. So number 1 reminder is Chat Gang ain't nothing to fuck with. Number 2, Wu-Tang, the original, you don't fuck with them. And 3, furries, you don't fuck with furries. Wu-Tang.
Tell you my furry story, and it's fairly harmless. First con I ever did in 2009 that I was a panelist at. There was a contingent of furries that were there, and you can see them. There are like 3 or 4 of them, and you see them walking around and stuff, and they were like hugging people and things. And I was talking to somebody, and one of them came up behind me and touched me. And so I turned around like ready to go because I'm all like, somebody's in my bubble. Who is this person? And they just went in their furry outfit. And I was just like, okay, I'm sorry. You can have a hug, you know? But that's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I freaked out at furry by being like, we're going to do it. Get your hands off me, you know. So
somewhere out there's a video of B Dave like getting into a fight with a fist fight with a furry, actually legit busting out some kung fu moves.
Was prepared to. I'm just saying.
Yeah, see that's the drama that's gonna come out in the like. B Dave fights furries. That's it.
Exactly. If you've ever seen that like stop motion video where the person did the baby in the Bruce Lee outfit and that person in like a dragon costume, it basically was that.
That's what happened.
That's essentially what happened. Right. But it ended with me giving them a hug.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Breaking story here. B Dave Walter assaults furries. No, I'm kidding.
Scandaloso.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Nobody clipped that shit. No. Yeah. So yeah, meth is big on mental health. Yeah, that's my jam there, Domir. Yeah, no, it's just you know, like I said, the Thash going all the way back, the identity blending. I don't understand why you wouldn't want more people to game with you, why you wouldn't want more people in on this thing. You know, the reaction, and this getting out of order here with the notes, Stranger Things, I think people pinpoint a couple things for where Dungeons and Dragons jumped in the mainstream. I'd actually go further back to like. You know, like the MCU really sort of pulling nerd into the mainstream, and then kind of with it all these other things, because there's some overlap. You know, but go ahead. Sorry, looks like you got a thought in there.
Because I've made the argument multiple times that it was Iron Man and the launch of the MCU is what ushered this in, because it was like, oh, it's okay for me to like comic books. It's okay to like Iron Man and Thor and the Hulk and Captain America. It's like, what about Superman and Batman? Them too? Oh. Well, there's this game I used to play in high school. That's legit now? Yeah, it became loving video games, just loving all of the stuff we all loved all along, but just didn't want to admit out loud. It all came in at once. But yeah, 1,000% pinned it back to Iron Man in 2008. Yep.
Yeah, that's where that was for me where I identified like, wait, it's, you know, because I've been like a lifelong nerd. But I was, you know, in the sort of like pseudo-punk scene, but I moved a lot, so I always got to be the cool new kid. And right about the time anyone figured me out, I moved again. So I never really went through like the full hazing, but I also never fully like affirmed my identity and had that moment where I had to like recoil and, you know, guard that I'm a nerd either. It just naturally happened. And of course I didn't really know I was a nerd until college either, and then I'm like, oh, I'm a nerd.
I lived through the Satanic Panic. I was there for all of it. I was there 3,000 years ago. Yes.
Yeah. Back in the
failed.
Yeah,
I was there.
Yeah, I had my Marilyn Manson album hidden in my underwear drawer, you know, because I didn't want my like angry aunt to find it, and
that was one of the things that I told those kids from Stranger Things. I was like, this story you're telling, like this was my life. You know what I mean? Like the thing you're pretending was what actually happened to me. Slightly fewer monsters. Slightly.
Yeah, yeah, like you didn't actually like fisticuffs with Vecna, but there might have been a demi-dog or two in there, and
I'm from Arkansas, man. There's weird shit in the woods. Yeah.
So RantCast indulges some rabbit holes as part of the shtick. What's your favorite cryptid then?
So for my comic book Electropunk, one of the things that I do in every single issue is they fight a real cryptid, and I draw on as much of the mythology as possible. Like in the graphic novel that we just finished crowdfunding, Spring Hill Jack is the villain. So Spring Hill Jack is high in my esteem right now. Then probably under that Sasquatch, probably under that the Jersey Devil, if forced to pick.
I love that he had an answer, Chat Gang. Amazing. Not just an answer, but look at that veteran move, springboard right into the shout out, like the promo.
I'm hard to stump, man. It's not impossible, but I'm hard to stump. Yeah,
the veteran move. No love for Mothman though, Chat Gang. So we'll get Jason Carl on here and ask him the same question, and that's going to be where I like decide which one of you two I like better. I'm kidding. It's you. Sorry, Jason.
That's all right.
Stranger who doesn't know
But
me.
you want him with your taste in wine, probably. He might be like actively looking down on you for your taste in wine too. I've never had it. I have no point of reference.
Saldo, I'm a sucker for cabs and Zinfandels. Beast of Bodmin Moor. I knew Checking would have an opinion on this. My favorite scene in Disco Elysium is when you're talking to the cryptozoologist's wife, and she's educating him on all these like made up cryptids for that in-game universe. And I had like a bunch of pure skeptics in Shack Gang for that like stream, that live stream, and they were like, they know that like I will at any given time fly into like how much I think like cryptids are cool. Like they're modern mythology, right? Like comic books are modern mythology. Cryptids are sort of modern folklore. Like they're not even modern, like, but we're always adding to them.
Literally not. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But Mothman, Slenderman, these are relatively new ones in the zeitgeist, and it's always just
like the Rake and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff is it's just utterly fascinating to me as a storyteller, as a writer. Like I just find the way stories latch on and how they even begin to manipulate reality to be fascinating. So it's no mystery to anyone in my usual audience. And I had like 3 people just hate cryptids. They hate cryptid stories. QAnon's a big thing. They're ruining all the fun conspiracies by being just fascist bastards. And I won. Like one of them over.
Wait a second.
What?
There is all the difference in the world between literally thousands of years of indigenous people saying there's big hairy people that live in the woods.
True.
And a handful of fucking douche nozzles that think there's pedophiles under a pizza restaurant in DC. That's not even in the same like universal orbit.
I know, but that's not how they onboard, like they just, because it's all Satan in the end. They always bring it back to Satan and anti-Semitism or racism. It always, they start out on,
who's they?
QAnon, like various alt-right websites, they usually tend to like, the
sure.
pipeline. The pipeline.
Yeah, I mean, it's the issue is because I spent quite a long time down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole back when it made more sense. And for the record, I can sum up literally every conspiracy theory for you right now. I can save you a lot of time and money, dear listener.
Yeah.
The people with the money and the power will do literally anything to keep it. That's it. That's the conspiracy theory. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Everything else gets increasingly less logical. And the problem is once you accept this supposition that everyone is lying, then you can be convinced of literally anything, which is wild because the people that are like everyone is lying to us tend to watch Fox News, which is literally lying to you. But I mean, that's confirmation bias. That's the backfire effect. That's the fact that so many people are wired as such that it is harder to admit they made a mistake. Mm-hmm. And to correct that mistake, that people will double down on being wrong rather than admit they made a mistake, especially if it is one that they've made protracted for years, which is just the saddest thing in the world to me. But no, that's the resurgence of the flat Earth thing. It's not that they actually believe the Earth is flat or that some grand they is trying to keep this from you.
The NASA is a fake the moon landing. They, them.
Again, to what end? You know what I mean? Like that's always the question. You're like, for what? Okay, I will grant you literally everything you're saying is true. It's not. It's all bullshit. But I will grant you it's all literally true.
Yeah.
To what end?
Right.
And then that's where it falls apart. It's like, I'll give you all of it.
Yeah.
Why?
Right.
But although some of my favorite content that exists is flat earthers running experiments to prove the earth is flat and it proves the earth is round every time.
Yeah. Well, Dan
Mm-hmm.
Olson, who's Folding Ideas, is a In Search of Flat Earth video series that like completely he shoots like the Mirror Lake, and you can see just brilliant series. And then he kind of dives into the sort of psychology of, I think Sophie from Mars also has a conspiracy video for like kind of geared at lefties. Go on. So you got a thought there?
I personally believe all kinds of weird shit, but I don't think I believe any weird shit that has been conclusively proven otherwise. You know what I mean? Like, so
See,
the moment that it's like, no, we looked, it's not that thing. I'm like, oh, okay. You know?
that see that's the best way I have to describe it. Like, as I indulge a little bit in you know, some old folklores. I indulge because reality is just, quite frankly, it's boring. It's a little bit more fun to believe in some wacky shit, right? It is. But the way I view it is, I believe in stuff, or when something's disproven, bang, goes into like, it's been disproven, so I can't hold it. But like, there's a lot of stuff that we haven't proven yet. Does that make sense? Like it's easier to disprove something than it is to prove something.
I also look at who's telling me this and why.
Well, see that,
you know,
yeah,
like right now at this exact second. Like, I posted like a ghost thing that happened in my house, I think yesterday or day before, on my Twitter.
I saw that. I'm
right?
like, I'm not sure if this is a work or this is, and I didn't.
No, that shit all happened.
Yeah. Go on.
But I mean, like for you right now, if you're like, I've seen a Bigfoot, I'm like, word? And you're like, here's what happened. And I'm like, really? And you're like, and for $20, I'll show you the picture. I'm like, nope, that's bullshit. Nope.
Right.
Yeah. Like, okay. You know, like, if a person that is giving me this account has no reason to try and deceive me, and it's not going to affect my life either way, I'm like, you know, there's stranger things in the world, Horatio, than written about, you know. It's just like, okay.
Yeah.
But the moment you're like, and therefore the government are reptiles, I'm like, nope, we're done.
Yep, checked out. Yep.
Nope, hang on.
See, I love that. This is awesome. So, welcome officially to RantCast. We went down our full blown rabbit hole tangent here. No, you're right. You're 100% true. I one of my favorite quotes is like, I don't believe in ghosts, but I'm scared of them. Like, I think that's like, but no, I'm a firm believer in like Cartesian doubt and like Plato's cave. Like, we don't ever really know fully what reality is. We're always interpreting the shadows on the cave wall, you know, and you could try to get a better perspective, but you know, you might never see the fire, right?
Human beings, Homo sapiens sapiens, have been exactly like this for between 200 and 300,000 years.
Yeah, brain hasn't changed.
And for all of our flaws, there's certain through lines that we have. And when people are like, let me come at this from the other angle, then I will complete the thought in two halves. Western society as it exists right now is predicated on the idea that we are the best and brightest right now that ever has been. We are the best at literally everything right now, and everyone before us was some shade of barbarism, all the way down to, you know, drooling cavemen. Mm-hmm. And so it is easy when, again, indigenous people, like take the Orang Pendek down in Indonesia and Java, mm-hmm. where they found the Homo floresiensis, the hobbits in the caves. When they went down there to search, the indigenous people were like, hey, there's forest people that live in the jungle. And they were like, hi, you silly savages, you're just seeing orangutans. And then they go and they find these bones and they're like, oh shit, there used to be little hominids. And they're like, no, they're still here. They're in the jungle. And the researchers are like, no, you silly people, they're just orangutans. Mm-hmm. Every time anybody's like, oh, they are just seeing bears or whatever, I'm like, no, they live there. They know what a bear looks like. Mm-hmm. And if they're telling you it's not that, then I believe them, not you. It's just so easy to just have this armchair response of just assuming we know better. And the thing I hate the most is there must be a logical reason for this, because that is not an answer. It isn't. That is just very intellectually laziness. So,
you preach it to the choir here, my man. Like it's like there's like science has its own god of the gaps that we don't often admit to, which is like, you know, sometimes you do have the best explanation for the thing with the tools available to you right now. Like and so you have to operate right now because, again, you haven't disproven the thing with all the rigors of science, you know, so that logic has to hold for a while, right? Like that. So, yeah.
I'm paraphrasing that saying that science advances with every funeral of a scientist. It's the same. Scientists are still human beings, and they're not free from that backfire effect that I was telling you about.
Or implicit biases that they're not even accounting for in their research, the observation, what is it, the observation effect? Go on, sorry.
When you've dedicated your life to something, a theory, and then that theory is disproven, that's a tough pill to swallow, you know? And like the question I always pose when people are like, well, there's no proof for this thing. I'm either like, well, there's only proof and you've simply misinterpreted it. Or if it were real, if it 100% were real, what would proof look like?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And a lot of times they can't answer that. You know, I'm like,
mm-hmm.
what exactly would that look like? Like to go back to Sasquatches, I'm like, we got pictures, we got videos, we got eyewitness accounts, you know, that you're like, no, guy in a ghillie suit, no. And I'm like, okay, so pictures, eyewitness accounts aren't real. What would proof look like? I can comprehend having like, okay, a corpse, that would be proof, or capture a live specimen. Okay. But when people say things like, well, why haven't we found any dead bodies? And I'm like, well, it's very rare to find bear carcasses, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Because they'll go off somewhere very isolated and die. And those are just animals. And then
they know
very
those woods
quickly,
better than you too.
yeah,
You know, like,
and they're very quickly fall to predation. So you have a creature. What if one is going somewhere secluded to die? What if they bury their dead? Neanderthals did, you know. So is it that far of a logical leap to be some other primate? I mean, like people didn't believe gorillas were real till the 1950s, even though the locals were like, no, really, for real. There's like hairy people in the woods. So we don't even know, you know, we don't even know. That's,
right.
But what I will say, the flip side to this is you hear anytime anybody is like, we're about to reveal our proof, I'm like, that's bullshit. No, you're not. No, you're not. When you're like, you know, disclosure is soon. I'm like, no, it didn't.
Coming straight at Zach DeLong on this one, huh? Like,
no, it is not. Look, man, if you had Sasquatch DNA, if you had hair samples, if you had a specimen, you would post that shit immediately. If only because somebody might beat you to it.
Right.
You know, like you wouldn't be like, no, soon we're going to. I'm like, no, you're not. Nope, fuck that.
Nope. We live by the subscribe. We die by the like. Right now,
man. You'd have shaky cell phone video of you.
Yeah,
like,
potato cam would be out immediately.
You guys, look at the body. Look at the canines. Yeah. Oh my God, we finally did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I want to reset a little bit back to kind of what you were saying about like. This, like, we always, and this is that sort of, you know, often it's the, quite frankly, it's, you know, supremacist hierarchy structures that have become the dominant lens of analysis for our reality, jettisoning like 200,000 years of other ways of viewing the world, right? Yep. And it is no more evident than when, you know, like, what is it, the ruins of Punipumco couldn't be. This is too scientifically advanced for any human to have ever made it. It's like, no, they made it. The pyramids, too science to make. And it's like, dude, no. Like, is it so hard for fucking white boys?
Like I said.
to, like, accept that, like, other people made great shit.
Because it is necessary to believe that we are the absolute best and brightest. And it's also let's go full pinko here. It's also heavily intertwined with the concept of capitalism. And I myself am a very red-blooded capitalist. I actually am a Ventru. I don't just play one on TV.
I said, yes. I respect it.
But there is a myth of unlimited productivity, that there will always be more. That is what the whole concept of loans and debts presuppose, that I'm going to give you 10,000 today and you're going to give me back 15,000 because there will be more. So we're the best and only getting better. We've got all the stuff and there will always be more of these things. Anytime you look back and you say, well, people had stuff we don't have, that is a blow against the first. The second one, people have risen and grown and achieved quite a lot and collapsed utterly and disappeared, ruins the ego of the second one. That's why it's so unpalatable that to even comprehend the fact that it's like people used to be capable of as much or more than we are, and they're all gone and forgotten, means maybe someday we'll be gone and forgotten as the earth burns us off like a parasites.
Talk about
fever,
going full pinko. So I'm a. Oh God, I'm about to lose all your audience that's watching me. See, I'm an anarchist. And so, like, I get hated by conservatives because, you know, I'm just a dirty lib, right?
Cool.
I get hated by, like, you know, any centrist, whatever direction, you know, left, right leaning, and I'm hated by lefties because they blame me for leftism failing. So, like, And chat gang like accepts me for who I am. They know that there is a countdown that I'm just going to go anti-capitalist at any given moment, and they accept me for the flawed person I am. But
that is a topic that is outside of the scope of our friendly chat this fine evening.
yeah, no, I know. I don't want to. No,
I have flamingly passionate thoughts on that. That it's like, hey,
yeah, no, it's fine. No, it's like I said, I'm used to it. Like, I cheekily, I anarchism is a direction, not a destination. Is the best I can summarize it to folks who are antagonistic. And there's a difference between radical. You can be radical of view, but reasonable of action. And this is like the thing that people utterly disconnect when they think of like an anarchist wanting to remove unjust hierarchies, wanting to build back up a grassroots community, wanting to build networks of mutual aid, like, and things like that. Again, I don't want to go into anything, but like I'm just saying, I'm not crazy. I just have a different heading. Go ahead.
It's almost like the mob lacks nuance.
It's almost like that, yeah, and it's almost like when you reduce people down to like these base they have utility. It's easy for me to say, hey, I'm kind of an anarchist, and you go, okay, bing, got it in my head, right? But to go that this is the box that he fits in, and this is everything he believes, and this is how he operates, and this colors his entire view of the world, that would be, that would lack nuance, right? Like that wouldn't be fair to me. So, but it's all right. Y'all can, I don't. Rantcast doesn't exist to tell people what to think. It exists to let people know what we think and have them, decide and then push back against any yikes. So
Sasquatch liberation now.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Based. See, we can all get on board with that. And that's the thing. I think there is the impending climate disaster is happening. It is, scientific consensus has been established virtually since 1970, right? Like it doesn't matter what category you would, as a vocal utility, describe yourself as, if the earth is on fire. And we have checkpoints that we're all going to have to hit as a culture, as a society, that we need to move toward. Or we're not going to beat the end boss, right? Like Vecna is going to win, and Vecna
it's weird.
Is capitalism.
It's weird to me. Vecna is capitalism.
Yeah. You
it
can
is,
clip that shit.
Yeah, it's weird to me how things get politicized. To bring this all the way back around, to the geekness of our topic, and how people being like, "Ooh, Star Wars is too woke now," when George Lucas literally is like, "No, that's what it was always about," and people want to argue with that. That's
right.
Always weird to me. That like some things getting politicized into or being like, Captain America is too woke. It's like, well, he literally exists to fight Nazis. Literally.
Well, even then he had his like super jingoistic like interpretations, and here's a hot take for the internet culture. The modern portrayal, the Chris Evans Captain America, is excellent. Winter Soldier is like, and you have these like comic or canon purists who will like always like point at, well, in this comic book he did this, to always support whatever that confirmation bias. And it's like, yeah, but the Captain America in the dominant zeitgeist right now is the Chris Evans one, and the one that sees the sort of fascist infiltration of this organization that he's represented and goes, nope, not okay. Whereas there is an iteration of Cap where so much they had to retcon it, where they had a version of Cap that really did defect to Hydra because he held the line of America as more important than equity, which is what I think is more the ideal, right? Like not a literal. Sorry, go ahead. I'll let you. Go ahead.
You tell stories about a character for 70 years. You can pick anything.
Right.
I think the Cap going to Hydra thing was edgelord hot take bullshit that I'm shocked even got the editorial in the first place.
Amazing.
Because it is a fundamental misunderstanding of the function of the character. From a literary and a narrative standpoint, Superman and Captain America serve the exact same role. They serve the role of the superlative. They're the one who always does the right thing, even when doing the right thing is hard.
And
Which is why
you.
everybody talks about, oh, those characters are so corny. It's like, yeah, but you need them.
Mm.
And anytime they deviate even slightly, everybody gets mad because everybody knows you need them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's they're pillars on which everything else stands. The Punisher doesn't get to be the Punisher unless Captain America is being Captain America.
Right.
So the person that did that story, I would have strong words for.
Well, I have a lot of strong words for a lot of like 80s, 90s, like the era of the anti-hero comic. And I have very, very fond memories of comics from that period. Don't at me at MR_MEPH on Twitter about how wrong I am.
Heaven forbid, right?
Yeah, don't get at me or anything, or like and subscribe to this video right now for more of my hot takes. But I, as much as I love that was where we had that sort of edgelord sensibility really sort of like became cultural. For it was this sort of like residual heat off the Gen X malaise and dystopia, because what was Gen X going through? Their parents essentially taking over politics. Like if every Gen Xer ran for political office, they were outnumbered 4-1. By their own parents. Like they couldn't have meaningful impact in the political strata. So they took to art and music and they made all this great shit. And then in the 90s, it kind of like it got chippier but it got like marketably chippy. It lost the soul of the counterculture that had been the heart of Gen X for a while, and it became this like, well, we're just going to make a character who like, is kind of a villain but does the good thing in the end because like it's a narrative and we want to say it's a protagonist, and there's like a lack of, and this is exactly what you're saying about Captain America, there's a lack of like sort of narrative continuity to that character's existence. And
there's room for moral ambiguity in storytelling.
Oh yeah, but you guys do
but it cannot be the benchmark of storytelling, and it can't be for characters who never have that. Like I watched an interview with Kathleen Snyder trying to dissect why Batman versus Superman didn't work. And I like Zack Snyder a lot. I like his style. I didn't hate Batman versus Superman, but I was completely clear why it didn't work. But one of the things she said that I thought was very important is people don't want to see their heroes deconstructed. Nobody wants a world where Superman wakes up and does not want to be Superman. Where it's like, more truth, justice in the American way. Nobody wants that. Yeah. You even might think you do. And that is why you can have, to use a different analogy, I was front and center for the entire Attitude Era of the WWE, where there was only bad guys and worse guys,
I don't know if I could pan up to my like AEW figures and stuff like that on my shelf, but yeah, go on.
Well, it was great for a time. Austin and The Rock were both bastards, and then they're feuding with Triple H, who's also a bastard.
But they were beating up capitalism. Like they're beating up the boss. Like it was so awesome. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying it worked. It worked for a time. It's just, but I think also, there's a big shift now in media. I joke about people not wanting nuance, but there is a big shift in a lot of storytelling and outlets where they want the good guys and the bad guys to be very clear. It's whose side am I on and whose side am I against. And I think part of the reason why people love The Lord of the Rings so much, I've seen people make this argument, and it's very true. It's clear who the good guys are and who you can trust. The masculinity is not toxic. The heroism is outright and overt. The sacrifices are beautiful but still have depth and nuance. And it's kind of perfect in a way that The Hobbit was not at all.
See, I actually I adore that. I like a good nebulous story. I love that Lynchian ending. My V5 game can be characterized as like a story like the Three Stooges of monsters trying to get through the doorway. Like it's just they're all like it's all the all the like the stuff trying to get through. I like those shades of gray, but I still love like clear cut protagonists and antagonists. I like to see, you know, essentially, you know, like I don't know. I like what you're saying there about the like having that clear cut protagonist antagonist, knowing who the good guy bad guy is, knowing. I think that plays to stakes, like understanding the stakes of what is there. A story without stakes is kind of meaningless, and I'm not talking
Literally.
about the sweet vampire ones. You know, you need. Go ahead.
I think for an ambiguous ending, one of the best ever was Inception. You know, which just for the record, if you didn't know this,
Unbelievable.
Cobb is out at the end of Inception. The wardrobe stylist came out, was like, no, the kids are wearing different things when they're in the dream and when they're out of the dream. They're literally dressed different. He is out. So there you go. If you weren't sure about Inception, there you go. It's my gift to you.
Yeah, thank you.
But you know, for Vampire in particular, Vampire the Masquerade is a storytelling game of personal horror. You are a monster and you don't want to be. You are fighting and resisting this urge. It's why you're not supposed to play Sabat. Some people do, but you're not supposed to, because that is not what the game is about. The game is you don't want to end up like them. And what is interesting, it is implied, but it is never stated outright. Over a long enough timeline, your humanity drops steadily. It is a slide that is nigh impossible to prevent. At the bottom of all your lost humanity, you become a white. You become a mindless monster. That's what's coming for literally every kindred. If you don't meet the stake, the flame, or the sun before that, you are doomed. In that looming doom, it is supposed to color who you are in this life, trying so desperately to hold on to something of what you were as the beast demands more and more and more from you every single night. It was one of the things about LA by Night that I kept trying to get across to people, that they were like, oh, you know, I love Annabelle. She's so good. I'm like, no, she's not. Annabelle's a fucking monster. We all are. Like, we're all terrible. We're just trying to be different shades of terrible. That's the actual story we're telling. We're literally monsters. It's just we might look nice or like do a nice thing in the short term.
Yeah.
But we're beasts.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant. No, it's brilliant. Like okay, that actually brings me to one of the questions I had. So your relationship with
Did you see that? Did you see how I
yeah,
got
no, pro, fucking pro. Look at that shit.
Yeah.
I had my segues, like I was starting to write them down here, but I didn't have to. I didn't have to use them.
Not gonna lie, we went from Bigfoot to the futility of capitalism.
I love it. This
is
RantCast. This is why I will never be successful, but I am doing what I fucking love. No, your relationship with Cynthia Marie, who played Nellie G. There were moments where like you're like you're gaming at the table and like you whisper over there, like it was that like. Did you know each other outside the show or before the show? Did you like have a rapport? Did you go in making characters? You're like, we're gonna be homies. Like, how did that develop? And because that was one of my absolute favorite parts. Like, besides, you know, just quite frankly, your brazen play of your character and Jasper as this sort of like counterpoint to like there was like perfect tonal shifts between like your character Jasper but that Nellie G, like that vibration, that harmony on screen was one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, Sin and I knew each other in advance. We very much had kind of agreed ahead of time that you know that there was something going on between us. Most of the stuff that you saw, most of the relationships that you saw that came up were really organic in the moment and really happened there. It's funny because, you know, Alex slightly to a lesser extent, but me definitely. I mean, we're playing ourselves. I tell them, I'm like, Victor was me. If I became a vampire tonight in 15 years, maybe slightly faster now that I got a blueprint, I would essentially have be where he is doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
But the thing about that is I took very seriously, we knew the point behind LA by Night was to launch Vampire V5, to launch Vampire for a whole new generation of fans that weren't there in the 90s like I was.
Yeah, me. That was
And,
the first game I ever ran was revised back at like 1998. Yeah, go on.
Is no, again, I was there 3,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And I always loved Clan Ventru. And so I'd played a Gangrel on Geek and Sundry before in the first game that I'd ever played on stream, the night that I met Jason Carl. And so everybody thought I was going to bring that character back, that I was going to bring back Stu the Gangrel. And I was like, no, I'm going to play a Ventru. Because what I knew was I could play the world's greatest Gangrel. I could become the most iconic Gangrel of all time. And in the back of my mind, I'd always wish I'd played a Ventru. And so I took very seriously that I was introducing the Clan of Kings to new people and to make them something other than greasy 80s style stockbrokers. And there is a letter in the base book, in the part about Ventru, a letter to a new Ventru. And the last line of it is, "We're watching, make us proud." And like, when I knew that I was going to be doing this and I got the book and I read it, I was just like, I literally got emotional because I was like, I'm going to make you guys proud. Let's go.
Yeah.
So that was the way that I approached it, man. And there was times I'd check in with Jason that I was like, if I do this thing, is it going to break the story? Like the episode where spoiler alert, the episode where
it's the 3-year-old thing. Spoiler alert, everybody.
Right? 4 years.
4 years, but yeah, my bad. I time blindness. Sorry.
When we went to break in that episode, I pulled Jason aside and I was like, if we kill Abrams, will it mess up the story? And he's like, I don't know if you can kill Abrams. I'm like, that is not what I asked. I said, if we kill Abrams, will it mess up the story? And he was like, no. And then when we got to the moment when I had a plan in my head of how I was going to kill him, I literally was going to Han Solo him under the gun with the Ralphus pistol, Han Solo him under the table with the Ralphus pistol.
And of course, Han shot first, right? Everyone, we're okay. All right, continue.
He absolutely shot first. It's necessary that he shoots first because you have to establish that he's a scoundrel. He's the type of man who'll shoot you under the table.
Yes,
That's the point.
yes, and it puts stakes in that scene because they don't know if they should trust Han Solo. It puts tension in the scene of them go.
Yeah.
There goes that pen, new pen.
Yep.
All right.
Right. Exactly. So.
It's called Rants.
Yeah, that's how I did it. That's why I would fling big sticks of dynamite all along because just try and make it happen, man. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great. That's great. So it's funny because I think a lot of chat gang, myself even, like we're certainly on like the fan the fan side of the table, looking up at you as professional gamers basically, right? Like it's these professional gamers and wondering, are they like us? Like, do you DM your GM in the middle of the night with like, okay, for like the production tomorrow, like, is it okay if I do this? Or like, what are you thinking if I like level up and take this ability? Does that stuff still happen?
it completely varies by the production.
Okay.
It really does.
Okay.
To what extent you've worked in advance, to what extent you have questions, to what extent you coordinate, it is case for case.
Right on.
And then it's player for player. Like Jason would give us player briefings, so we knew at least roughly what was going to happen. It would say things like, someone is going to come talk to you, let them talk before you attack them. You should be leaving the club by the midpoint of the episode. Just framework. So plenty of times we could still be surprised. Alex famously would not read them and didn't want to know anything. Alex wanted to be 100% blind.
Yeah.
So that every single thing he did could only be in the moment.
Yeah.
And so he wouldn't think or plan or any of that. I knew what I was gonna. I didn't foresee becoming Baron because at the time we were just coming off of We're Alive Frontier, where I'd played a character who was the leader of an unruly band of misfits that would not listen to reason, even to their detriment. So when I made Victor, I was intending to make not Chateau. That is why I consciously asked myself what kind of vampire would actually be having a good time as a vampire, a nightclub promoter. That's why Victor was a nightclub promoter. I knew he, being a Ventru, that I had to have a head for business. But again, having to be mindful of the fact that I am a black male on the internet, it was very important to me that Victor was not a criminal, that he'd made his money because he was smart.
This comes out in
Over
the
the course,
relationship dynamics with your kids, and yeah, it's
exactly.
that first season. It is kind of I think central to the role or to your character. Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, over the course of the show, he did lots of crime, but he did crime in the context of being a
Vampire, right?
not in
Not
the
being a
context of being
black
a
business
black
owner.
dude.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, and I was very conscious of that. I was very conscious of what I was trying to put forward of what a Ventru is and what I was.
Mm-hmm.
But I had, in terms of like what I was going to do for his disciplines and that kind of stuff, that I had it all mapped out. I had it mapped out more than anybody at the table, which is why I became powerful before the rest of them did.
Well,
but the reason why
yeah.
I specialized in dominate, even I didn't know how useful it actually was going to be.
Right.
I specialized in dominate because it was the one thing I could do that no one else could.
Yeah.
Both Annabelle and Nellie both had presence.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't see fortitude, like, oh, I can get shot and live through it. You know, that's not sexy. So I was like, I'm gonna lean heavy into dominate, and it just worked out great.
Yeah, chat gang here giving you, I think, which is high praise. Crimson Rockstar says Victor is one of the most respectable characters I have seen in any RPG from anywhere, even as a monster. I'd go as I'd extend it to story, any story I've seen. Yeah, no, it's like Victor's legit, and there's a continuity to the character. There's a progression. You know, I think it's around the time you're at like the you're at the I think it's the Succubus Club. In that, is that the first season, second season? I'm horrible with time. It's
Succubus Club is the second.
See,
season.
That's got to be weird for your audience, people who watch your stuff, because for them it can happen and right now, right? They binge watch everything, and for them it is immediate. Sure. This story just happened, and for you, it's
yeah, it was years ago. You'd be shocked how often people. I once this really happened. I was in a Twitch chat somewhere, and somebody was like, "You're B. Dave Walters?" I was like, "Yeah," and they were like, "I don't believe you," and I was like, "Okay," and they were like, "Well, if you're B. Dave Walters in episode 3, season 4 of L.A. by Night, when Victor, what does he say to Annabelle?" I'm like, "I don't know, dude."
Do you know how many fucking games I play?
Ago. Yeah, it was literally thousands of hours of content between here and there.
Yeah. I'm fucking interviewing Matthew Lillard on Monday. I got to talk to fucking Matt Mercer over here, and there's like turf wars, like West Side Story between me and Matt Mercer on who the best GM in the world is.
This is
we snap it up.
He unquestionably has better hair. He's better hair. It wasn't until I started.
You have the better sound effects. You have the better sound effects.
Oh. Thank you. Yeah. It wasn't until I started screen grabbing the things this person was saying and tweeting them, and they saw that they were like, "Oh shit, it is you." I'm like, I got no reason to lie to you, man. Yeah, that's. But I digress.
While we're on it, I got to talk about your Twitter game. You are unapologetically yourself on Twitter. It is refreshing. I'm one of those people who can't keep his mouth shut. The show's called RantCast. And so. It's just going to come out on Twitter if I hold on to the thought. It'll be out there. So why pretend I'm anybody but me? But as a content creator, where you're associated with these official brands, you're associated with these big time shows. First live, televised GMing. For me, it's huge. Stranger Things is one of my absolute favorite things. So I'm going to keep coming back to it. You are at the vanguard of some of these communities, and you do not shy away from having a take.
It's well, like I said, I'm completely aware that, like, if I didn't say anything political, for instance, I'd probably have 3 times the following,
Yeah.
It's I don't say anything that I don't stand behind,
Right.
I mean, again, I'm still a person, there's still things that come into my mind that I'm like, I should not put that into print. You know what I mean? Or memes I'll send a buddy that I never, ever, ever would tweet far and wide. You know what I mean? It's like monstrous. I know. But the things I say, I'm like, quite frankly, if I say something that a person is like, well, I'm going to unfollow you for this. I'm like, bye. You know, it's like to me, it's like the train has took itself out. Or if a company is like, well, you're too vocally supportive of Black Lives Matter, we don't want to endorse you. I'm like,
yeah, double guns.
you
Yeah.
know, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
both barrels.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I don't mind. I'm like, it's important enough to me that I will come out and I will plant my flag on these things. And I'll try and intersperse it with funny pictures of cats or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because to me, and I, for the most part, my community is fairly cultivated now that I think people get this. Again, I don't really block people. I've had this Twitter account since 2009. I have blocked 9 people, 9 total. I've muted hundreds though.
Yeah, I go to the mute button.
It takes nothing to get muted. You just have to say one thing I think is dumb, and I'm like, boop, we're done here.
Yeah, that's why I didn't press my luck with our little exchange between I was play acting a Malkavian and you were being a Ventru, and I'm like, I don't want to get muted right in front of the show. And
yeah. I muted a lot of people in that thread for the.
I'm like, yeah, I can't press my luck here. I'm like, no, I better ease up.
No. But it's every once in a while people be like, they it's rare, but they'll try and shut up and dribble me. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I don't follow you for this. I'm like, you gotta understand. I play games professionally and I play games for fun, but I'm Black all the time. I got 2 daughters all the time. You know what I mean? Like that is the depth and context that I come out of. When I drive down the street and I see the cops coming the other way, for me, that is how, I don't want to presuppose your life experience, but if you go out in your backyard right now and you see a bear 20 feet away, that's how I feel when I see a cop 20 feet away. That's just the reality of the life I live. And that is how I speak, and whenever anybody's like, oh, this is damaging, my euphoric bubble, I'm like, well, that's real rough. I wish I got to have a euphoric bubble.
Yeah.
So I don't care.
Well, that's the thing that pisses me off the most about the no politics and gaming takes. It's like some people's existences are like inherently politicized. They don't have the option to go into this little safe space. And it is a lesson I painfully learned. I grew up in a biracial family. I have 2 Black brothers, Black stepdad. The worst thing I've been called on the internet is a race traitor because I've talked about that sometimes. And there was some fucking right-wing grifter. He said something that was just a eugenics hot take about mixed race, mixed racial or biracial families. And I'm like, I heard the hate come out and it trauma triggered. And so I took to Twitter like an asshole and I just went off and I'm like, this is my experience. I've been fucking stabbed by a bunch of skinhead douchebags for literally walking my brother to school. That's it. And here's the thing that I learned that a lot of folks don't, which is if I had crossed the street, just my brother would have been stabbed. And it's I have the option to opt out and gain all my privilege back or whatever whatever's not going to get me roasted on the internet, whatever the vernacular is. I have the ability to do that. I've only residually caught hate. I don't know what it's like to wake up every day like my brother, but I was there when he did. Sorry.
But no, I don't mean to interrupt you. And this is an important thing that I by no means am trying to pat my own back for this. But a second ago, when I was like, I don't want to presuppose your experience. I don't know your life.
Yeah.
So I very easily could have been like, you have no concept of what I'm speaking
No,
of.
I thought it was very
when the truth is you do.
No. Yeah. I didn't do that to yes and you or anything like that.
No,
that was it was I think it was a very pertinent point because like I said, I get to opt out.
But more what I'm trying to get at is for the people that are watching at home, that you don't know what another person's been through. You don't know what they know or don't know. In judging solely by appearances is almost unilaterally harmful. That's because again, you've witnessed firsthand what Black people in America go through. I'm sure there was times that you were out walking with your stepdad and got all kinds of weird looks, you know?
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh my god, the fucking conversations that spring up around like the type of women that are with a black man and like and then like
Lucky ones.
damn right, yeah. No. The joke that I'm a fucked up Oreo cookie, or and no, there's like a whole thing, but like I grew up in a trailer park in North Carolina where like one half is like not the cool rednecks who were like pro union, stuff like redneck hick racist, and the other half is essentially black ghetto, right? Like, and it's and to like just. It's a divide I saw young and I didn't register. I was like last year old when I realized why my brother Raphael stopped playing like nerd shit with me. And this is why what I think you're doing is fucking important and amazing. He played Ninja Turtles with me. I was Raphael, he was Leonardo. He played Thundercats with me. He'd usually be Panthro. I'd be Lion-O because I'm the older brother, right? And we play all this nerd shit. We got the Power Rangers. He'd be the Black Ranger. I'd be the Green Ranger. And then after a point, X-Men. Bishop didn't show up until what? Season 4? 3? Something like that. And it's just, and I'm fucking 7. I have no idea why he doesn't want to play X-Men with me. I don't know. And I'm like, and I was talking to him about this. I'm like, Raphael, man, like, is this why we kind of like stop playing together? And then I start, and then that's when I kind of start going to, hanging out with my own, because first off, hanging out with your younger siblings is already, once you get to a certain age, starts to become a little bit of a faux pas. And I'm like, Raphael, is this, I just like, it just had this like moment, you want to, check in with him. He's like, I mean, kinda. He's like, I didn't like an X-Man. He's like, I didn't like any of the characters. So when you wanted to play X-Men, I'm like, I didn't know who to play. And then the sibling dynamic. Well, you should play this one. They got this power, and you should play this one. They got this power. You're not even, and that's privilege. That is the definition of a blind spot.
I don't want to be Nightcrawler. Yeah, but this is why diversity and inclusion matters. That everyone needs to see themselves reflected in the media they consume as both hero and villain, as something to aspire towards, and as a cautionary tale against. That is the real value of it. Because for my money, the rant I always give is storytelling is the thing that makes us human. Everything that we do, some other animal does. And in the fullness of time, when we find out what crows and elephants and dolphins are saying to each other, they might be telling each other stories too. But at least for the moment, we're the only ones that can sit around a fire and talk about the labors of Hercules and take some actionable insight about life from it.
Right.
And when you remove someone's ability to participate in that, it is such a terrible detriment and assault on their soul. It's not just, they're going woke. It's like, no, these people have always participated in these communities, always.
Yeah.
Black people, gay people, everybody that was not a cis white male has always been a part of these communities. And so it is not, it is not performative. Well, sometimes it's performative, but for the most part, it's not just performative. It is a more accurate reflection of what the world's been like the entire time.
Yeah, no, and that goes back to the science takes. That goes back to the some of the other stuff. It's just this appealing to and call me a race trader at MR under MEPH. The white male gaze has been catered to plenty in my experience. I'm good. I'm good. Like let's get some diversity in there. Let's get that. So I just kind of wanted to as we were talking, I had a personal question because since we're roughly around the same generation and stuff like that, like what did pull you into the nerd sphere, and did the GMing come first? Did the playing come first? Did the comics come first? Did trying to go down a films path and with G4 hosting hosting? Like, yeah, go ahead.
My mom, I was raised in a nerdy, geeky environment my whole entire life. Like I don't remember a time before comic books were around and action figures and things like that. I got into D&D when I was 13, which was, still everybody's like, ooh, this is evil. Which ironically enough, the Satanic Panic is why D&D is so popular now.
Oh, it boomed
because,
it. Like, yeah.
well,
Your parents telling you not to play something, like.
Yeah, it just became edgy. Otherwise, it would have just been like Monopoly. Like, there's not a Monopoly subculture. It's when it became a place to escape, and rebel relatively safely is why it lasted as long as it did.
Yeah,
and then, I saw it just become like geeky and just a thing you just don't talk about. You just kind of did in secret in the basement.
Yep.
So much so that when this Renaissance came around, I was like, oh, word? Really? Oh.
I can talk about it now. Yeah. I can make a show out of this. Yeah.
Yeah, there's money in this thing? Really?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, if you told me, I mean, I guess it's been about 7 years now. So, I mean, if you told me 8 years ago, if you told me much less 10 years ago, that it's like, check this out. People are going to be playing D&D. They're going to get paid to do it, and other people are going to watch them do it. I'd be like, that is not a thing. I don't know what you're talking about. No.
Yeah.
My earliest memory was I got started with a game called Rifts.
Oh shit!
Yep.
My Rifts books are all here. Yep. There's a pile over there. It's TMNT by Palladium Books and Rifts RPG. I catch hate every time I bring it up. So go on. Sorry.
Got problems. The system's got problems. Actually, the very first RPG book I ever got was a copy of Ninjas and Super Spies I got for my birthday. And I opened it.
It's such a snapshot.
You just see tables and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is like a computer game. And we returned it. And I got a model of the Starship Enterprise from the Next Generation for my birthday. So I'm an OG. And then some years later, I did get Ninjas and Super Spies and all that. And I got it. So we're playing Rifts. And a buddy of mine was like, oh, if you're going to play an RPG, you got to play Dungeons and Dragons. That's the original.
Yeah.
And so we started, and it was just the two of us, which is why I do all these one-on-one games now, because that is actually how I played originally.
Me and my friend Sam. Yeah, it was Rifts, but yeah, go on.
I played an elven fighter mage thief that was very heavily based on Vampire Hunter D. Not at all legally distinct. I think the character's name even was D.
My Banu Hakim is unapologetically, like, basically just like Cloud Strife. Like, unapologetically. Uses Cloud Strife, who disarmed Sephiroth and took the katana.
As one would. The Buster Sword's impractical.
You gotta rock a katana. Go ahead.
And then I was just always doing it, kind of in the background, and sometimes I'd play, and sometimes I'd run things. I was a 4th edition refugee, so I went and played Pathfinder for about 4 years.
Same.
Yep. And then I was a relatively late adopter of 5th edition, because 5th edition was in 2014. I think I started in 2015, maybe even 2016 with 5th edition, because my friends were like, no, it's good again. And I was very much like, I don't know, dude. And then played it, and I was like, well, no, this is very elegant. I really like this advantage-disadvantage thing. This makes a lot of sense. This
my
is
favorite mechanic. Yep.
Go ahead. Yeah, though I felt the same way about the Blood Dice and Vampire. But
yes! That's why I love V5.
Yeah, man.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say this is the very pure expression of the games I love, and then it was on.
It was role playing versus role playing, the ROLE versus the ROLL. There is that harmony when the dice meet the narrative, and Hunger Dice is that. When your parties, go ahead. Yeah.
No, finish your thought.
Yeah, when and this happens in D&D too with advantage disadvantage. When somebody in your party's like, I'm gonna do this like dope shit, and you're like, advantage, and it just it rewards that rewards or penalizes it, but it brings the role ROLE into the playing with the dice, because rolling dice is fucking fun. It's awesome to roll dice. It's cool seeing big numbers, or like having the best laid plan and then rolling crap
and the
then
dice
just like,
say otherwise.
Boom. Right. Yep. Yeah. So all right, your story now. Yeah.
I'll tell you. So this is a mild spoiler for the Stranger Things game. So through the whole thing, I was trying to set up Priya being the one to kill Vecna, because in the show, her character Lady Applejack is the one that kills Vecna, and we get all the way to the end. I dropped 3 of them into death saves. the the only
I just watched it this morning. I was saving it so it was fresh in my mind today. Yeah, go ahead.
the only time I intervened in the entire thing, outside of just explaining it to him that you saw, I was like, okay, so time out, hold on, and I told Gaten and Priya what they should do. I'm like, this is what you should do, and I told Priya, I was like, when you roll, tell me you get a natural 20. And the reason why I did that is I didn't want to set up this big epic moment, have her roll a 1 and be like, guess Vecna kills everybody. Womp womp. Thank you for playing, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, here we go. Back in. They set it all up. We get to the moment and she rolls, she really gets the 20.
Yeah.
That's why they all freak out like that. That's why they're all like, she did it. She really did it. And I stood up and I'm like, oh, shit, she really did it.
When I killed War with my he was a Asgardian elf cyber knight named Ingram Avery, Sir Ingram Avery with the Aberrant, which is the honorable evil alignment, because I was a fucking edgelord growing up. I've since come back to my edgelordness. I've embraced it a little bit more, but self-awareness is critical. This is my chat gang teaching moment. Self-awareness is critical if you're an edgelord. You have to be self-aware. Nobody likes a sincere, unaware edgelord. Don't do that to your coterie or your party. Yeah.
Don't be the trench coat katana guy.
It was the as it coming out my Banu Hakim. Look, it's not my fault they made a spell that says you can actually do the Highlander thing with blood sorcery where you stash your katana at home and so you can literally sorry.
I was there for all of it. Maybe I did it frequently. Yes, okay, whatever.
No,
we all did things we're not proud
of. Some of us fought with foam swords outside the convention center. We're maybe not proud of it. No, it was I killed the Lord War on the nat 20 and the whole and my this is one of the non games where my the GM's like bullshit and they look up and then the whole table gets up and looks over. And
let me tell you one other thing about that. When we were doing the setup for Stranger Things, they were asking me what I needed, and for the most part I was like, a table and we'll get to getting it. I was like, but you got to make sure you have a dice cam. And they were like, why? And I said, because at some point somebody's going to roll a clutch 20 and you're going to want to catch it. So that is why the dice cam even existed. And it's funny because I went into the comments of the YouTube video, which I usually don't do, although they were shockingly
the 11th
positive.
commandment, thou shalt not read the comments, right?
I largely don't, but they were shockingly positive, and I appreciated it. But I saw multiple people that were like, they faked that 20, and I was like, I assure you we didn't. And I didn't even say because I was prepared to fake that 20. I was just like, no, she really did that. You know what I mean? That actually happened. Yeah. So
that's fantastic. That actually brings me to one of the questions I kind of had that we glossed over, because RantCast you get into the organic conversations, you go around. You deal with players with a range of skill, especially when you're GMing for sort of famous folks and I mean it's not just the Stranger Things cast. I've seen you've had I think there was you've had a range of folks, and I stashed my notes somewhere. I was going to look more intelligent in the moment, but maybe you have some highlights of you deal with people who have a range of experience with RPGs, and you have this ability where you sort of build the game's complexity and layers, and you pull them. You can see some of these VODs that I was mainlining for the last month. I'm just okay, because I know what I know you from, right? And I'm like, but there's so much other. You're prolific, dude. I'm surprised there's not 20. It's literally. Do you have multiplicity? Do you have multiple selves as a superpower, or
I wish I did either a cloning machine or a time machine.
You don't have some.
At the height of my Patreon, in addition to streaming, I was running about 35 or 40 games a month.
I can't. My peak was 9, and I had no life, and it was for 9 games.
I don't recommend it. Yeah, it's I don't recommend it.
But yeah,
yes, anyhow.
Yeah, you have this range of people with varying degrees of skill, all with different ranges at your table, digital or in person, and you have this way of layering it in and bringing them. That's got to be a little bit of a different struggle. At one point in my GMing career, I'm not GMing noobs anymore. I've since walked that back, but for a spell, that's got to add a layer to it, especially when you've got the cameras on, when this is going to hit YouTube, or this is going to be this is going to be on television.
Sure.
This is, yeah.
Well, it goes back to that thing we were saying at the very beginning, you know, that I'm trying to cultivate new fans. When you use your candle to light someone else's candle, you haven't lost anything. You've gained a second candle.
That's right.
So I want everybody to have a good time. That's why, again, in the Stranger Things thing, when Joe rolls that 20 to hit Vecna and gets up and runs around, I'm like, got him. He's one of us now. Got him. So I'm only ever there to make sure that the people have a good time first. That is the most important thing. The story comes second and the dice come third. So I run into this a lot because even when I have people that are familiar with the game, I run a lot of level 20 games. That's my niche, and very few people have played level 20.
Level 20
So-
D&D has a history of breaking. It's way better with 5th edition because bonded accuracy, but it still has like a little bit of a breakdown where the characters specialize in this and the versus that. Yeah, so continue. Sorry. Just setting up for folks who've never played 20.
Everybody can do everything. You're gods at 20.
Yeah.
But there's always bigger gods.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for opportunities, and this is the same thing when I'm playing. I'm looking for an opportunity to make the other people look cool. You know, just
GMing.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
That's the GMing ethos. I hate the adversarial. That's it. You're right. That residual heat that for me, I live for that moment where the players succeed. I love letting a clever idea where like I haven't thought of the plan for the or like I had a just to reset it to my own V5 game, which is the one I'm running right now. I came up with a cool nursery rhyme for this like blood tree they found in the middle of like some park in Wisconsin, right?
Thanks, I hate it.
Yeah, blood tree, yeah. It turns out to be like it's tied into Wraith because I'm using a lot of my old like World of Darkness knowledge from the 90s and stuff, so it's you pulling that in. And I just wrote a cool nursery rhyme for it, and it was I can't remember the nursery rhyme because I don't have my notes on me, but it was something like you need a sacrifice of what is it? A sacrifice of blood. No, a sacrifice of love, loss, and limb, or something like that. Let me out or let me in. I had no idea what any of these meant, and my players just came up with it. The limb literally chopped their limb off, and the tree gave them a limb as a gift. So now they have this like mobile altar for this, this Nexus ghost point, right? For loss, they gave up their clan line, like bloodline, complete with their lore sheet and everything like that. So like we're doing this thing now where essentially we're rewriting them to be more like a Cappadocian than a strict Hakata.
They just opted into Caitiff. Interesting.
Well, that's how I initially interpreted it, is they opted into Caitiff, but I like to reward clever ideas. So instead of I went back to the Cappadocian Banes, and it wasn't quite compulsions back then, but I used those for inspiration. So it's like at first I said, well, go through the book and see what you're going to pick up the Caitiff. You're going to pick up the Caitiff compulsion, pick a Bane you like that you think is sensical for the tree. And then after like a while, I'm like, okay. But yeah, they opted into Caitiff basically, and I'm like, that's a fucking sacrifice. Like, it was just this really cool and rewarding the player, and it made my story so much better. And watching the gears turn in their eyes, and then having this moment, and
in those are the moments that stick with people. And I think the adversarial system is an inheritance back to old 1st and 2nd edition.
Yeah, Gygax was an adversarial GM, right? Like that was
No, the DM was trying to kill you, and you were trying to survive. It was PvP. It was one of the best evolutions of the game. And I don't think this was actually written anywhere. It just came up culturally. Is that it is a collaborative art. It's a story you're telling together. But a lot of that adversarial nature was an outgrowth of the old war games that D&D was an outgrowth
chainmail, and if we want to bring it back.
I've got my army and you got your army, and our armies are going to fight, and one of us is going to win. Versus this is a journey that we're all taking together.
Right.
In those moments, those are the ones that last. Like a story that I often tell in the aforementioned Pathfinder game. I had to play. We went from level 1 to level 20 with all 10 mythic tiers. So I mean, we did that game. And one of the characters, his concept was he's a dragon slayer. And at level 1,
pretty classic in metal. You can't slay dragons at level. Yeah.
Right. But that was his thing. I'm a dragon slayer. And so I think at level 8, he got an arrow of slaying shot, which in Pathfinder has a ridiculously low save. But if you hit, the target has to make the save or it dies. And he had an arrow of slingshot for dragons. I gave him that. Literally a year later, more than a year, maybe 18 months later, I had planned out this entire conflict with this dragon, and I'd mapped out every round. Like round 1, the dragon's gonna fly over and use its flaming breath. Round 2, the dragon's gonna land in melee. Then it's gonna fly away. You know, I had it beat by beat by beat. Get to the game, set up the dragons come in, you know, giant red dragon. We roll, he goes first in initiative. He's like, I'm gonna use my arrow slingshot. I'm like, you're what now? And he's like, my arrow slingshot that I got. And I was like, okay. Because again, I'm like, there's no like the dragon's bonus to its con is greater than than the save on this. He rolls natural 20. I rolled a save 1.
The dice were against you that day, right? Yeah.
So I mean, I let him shoot the dragon out of the sky.
You gotta let it happen, right? Like you let it.
Well, and they all go crazy. And I so easily could have been like, oh, it makes the save, or oh, there's 2 dragons, or anything. And it would have been another just very forgettable combat encounter.
Yeah.
You know, but now that for him, for me, for all of us who were there, we will literally never forget that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where you want that dice cam too to be like, no bullshit. I rolled the 1, and you want the camera to zoom in on the 1. I've had those moments with my party where I'm just like, this is only gonna work if I flub the dice, or if I and then like I'm like, oh, like get in here, like it's so cathartic. I had my sort of I've been a variety streamer, like I said, embarrassing amount of time. I did before I understood the sort of dynamic between sort of trying to make a show for an actual play, and that wasn't really like colloquially going around yet. We were just playing like 6-7 hour sessions, literally live on camera, and no production, no player meeting, I'd say, no understanding of what we're gonna do each episode, taking care of some stuff off camera, like none of that yet, which is something I'm currently like kind of growing through. And I gave them something called the Manus Mortis, which is this hammer. I'm very into like Dark Tower and David Lynch inspired campaigns and stories. That's kind of like a lot, like really where I'm in shared realities and like planar travel, and so there's this like hammer called the Manus Mortis, and it is the only one that exists in the multiverse, because I started in Rift, which is multiversal, right? And when you kill the thing, it will kill anything in existence. The whole first arc, like my story beats, like like 3-act structure. I run every adventure like a 3-act structure, and I run every season like a 3-act structure, and then the campaign is a 3-act structure, right? And how long that is varies, I
use 5X, but yes.
No, I mean based, way better. I went for English Lit, was my educational background, and so it's just like 3 acts. It's easily just there's a rhythm to it. Anyway, I digress. So I give them the Manus Mortis, and the whole first act is like they wake up in a bar, and I love subversion, and they're like, waking up in a bar, and this is veteran RPers, and they're like, why are we waking up in a bar? And then somebody looks out the window, and they're on a ship in the afterlife, like going to a place called Elysium, where their souls will be sorted to go to their various deities, and the whole first adventure is like. Basically like borrowing and stealing to like pay the ferryman to go back. But the ferryman makes the stipulation. This is right when 5th edition came out, and I hate resurrection effects. I think they cheapen the narrative stakes. And so I had a problem. I hate resurrection effects. They cheapen the stakes. And so like the ferryman's like, sure, but you can never be revived again. And so they get revived, and that's the campaign set, and they find out that they died sort of transporting this thing called the Manus Mortis. They scramble for the whole first act to get it back, blah, blah, blah. They get it. And then we're in our, essentially like our second act, mid-tier villain, middle of the act, and they hate the character so much. And they do not believe that at the beginning of the campaign, I would set them up to have a hammer that could kill anything in the world. And the villain of the whole world is established as who this is, and it's a separate person. Like, they're literally trying to destroy the Earth. That's big plot. We know who the good guys are. High stakes. Like, I blew up 2 moons over the horse of the whole campaign. He killed the god of dreams at the season finale of the first act, right? Like, at the end of that first year of our game. And they grab the Manus Mortis, and they basically use it to just kill some idiot. And they're like... And the whole party's like, we didn't think you actually gave us this thing that could kill anything. And I'm like, yeah, but it was the only way to kill the Demi-Lich at the end of the game. And they're like, oh, fuck. I'm like, oh, you're just going to have to get creative at the end. And what that set up was later on they find out like the phylactery was the original quest giver, and so they actually had to kill the phylactery. It was like super like tearful moment. And I'm like, if they had actually carried my intended plot point of the hammer all the way to the end and smashed the nail, it would have been a way less fulfilling story. You know, your players, give them cool shit, let them use it, see where they take you. You will always have another cool idea.
Well, you know, the argument that I always make is the reason why people play these games is to be at cause in the narrative, to feel like what they do and do not do matters. Because again, we're so often denied that in life. So anytime you deny them in game mattering, you are doing them a disservice. Right. So my style, the secret sauce of how I tell stories, whether it's comedy, horror, action, any of the above, I ask myself what is the worst possible outcome from their actions or their inactions, and then I do that thing. You know? And yeah. Those are the games. If you ever watch, that's how I'm always like ratcheting it up. You know what I mean? Is I'm all like, it just keeps getting worse until usually there's some sort of conclusion or denouement, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's really more pending the genre if you end on an up or a down. Right. And then that's kind of that.
All right. So segue, films.
Mm-hmm.
You have a film that you've been working on now for several years.
Yeah.
The pandemic complicated things. The Indiegogo campaign was relatively successful. You're learning what it's like to I think you learning what it's like to do it by yourself, essentially. You know, I can't help but think of right now with the sort of actual play culture of D&D, of actual plays of VTM, LA by Night, as sort of episodic, sort of like TV show parallels. Like, I think that binge watching TV and actual plays, like, there's a reason both of these things are culturally relevant right now. We want this style of stuff. And here you are doing sort of like old school, making a documentary. I'm not going to explain what your documentary is to Checking. I want you to explain what it is. Tell me how you wanted to do that, and really sort of just take me through that. Like, because now is this different for you? Did you go into films and like D&D was the side project, and then you found out D&D could become the thing? Like because I see with the TV host, I'm like, this is someone who always had a mind towards television, always had that in them, you know.
We're short on time, so I cannot give this answer proper justice. What I always wanted to be was a writer, and I accomplished that. I write for film and television. I've written comic books. I got, you know, stuff on the shelves of Barnes and Noble, which is a joy that I didn't expect to feel as much as I did, as you go in and see something that you wrote in there. And so because I fancy myself a storyteller. Yeah. I'm kind of medium agnostic, really. I enjoy actual plays because the bar to do them is lower. But I mean, I've written movies, I've had films produced, I've written television, I've had television produced. It's all, for me, is just a question of the format and the style. The documentary, Dear America from a Black Guy, is about facilitating conversations. Because right now we're just kind of yelling at each other across the void.
It's that nuance, right? That nuance you keep talking about being gone, right? Yeah.
And we really do all have more in common than not. The problem I keep running into, outside of the logistic problems, that it's a who'd have thought that trying to make a movie by yourself in a pandemic is difficult. That's weird.
Yeah, no.
You know, you know.
Yeah.
All while, you know, trying to keep a roof over your head in the interim.
And doing the shit you got to do to, you know.
Yep.
Go on.
The goalposts keep moving. Things keep getting worse. You know what I mean? Like everything I'm trying to address, like, oh, here's the other calamitous thing that has happened. So I keep having to like redo parts of it that I'm like, well, that's not relevant anymore, but this is, you know. So
that was the question I cut from my own like little prompts and notes, is like, because we just had Roe v. Wade overturned, and I'm like, dude's got to go back and film something about that, doesn't he? Like, there's no way you can't.
Or you can't speak to it because it's all interwoven. I mean, definitely outside of the scope of the time we have left, but that shit is just bare bones white supremacy. That's all that is.
Well, yeah,
That is
it's patriarchy and white supremacy. We haven't.
Yep.
Why do things keep getting worse and never getting better? Because we never excised the original cancer of white supremacy from our Constitution. Quite frankly,
and then stop paying attention and allowed ourselves to be rocked to sleep, which we cannot be now. And by the way, let me just say, dear viewer, I know that you're hurt and scared and frustrated. We all are, but fucking vote. Vote in every election for the rest of your life. And everybody's like, I'm seeing a lot of like, oh, voting doesn't work, hot takes. I'm like, if voting didn't work, they wouldn't be working so hard to stop you from doing it.
Correct.
Vote.
Correct.
You know, if you're not happy with your candidates, vote for their primary challengers. That's cool, because the other side, the people that want to have a very retrograde worldview, that want this world to go back to 1850, they are going to vote. And they don't have these moral quandaries.
No, they don't give a crap.
Tests, you know, at all. No, they're going
it's
to
just
show up.
It's just next scumlord up to take the next place.
Yep.
It's even as like a radical leftist. I like to think radical leftist.
Radical left.
Yeah, radical lefty. It's triage. Like, I see the world going forward, but you don't not vote, because at the, I like to, in my lefty spheres, like, Republicans are the enemy. Democrats aren't your friend, but like, at least you can dilute evil, so you can deal with it, right?
Hey, one side is ineffective, the other side is actively malevolent.
Right.
So
at least stop the bleeding, God damn it, and then we have time to deal with the other stuff on your local level,
correct,
on your community level, whatever your modus operandi is. I think that's our final soapbox, actually, right there.
I think that's it.
I think that's the final soapbox. Any actual final? You want to expand on that? Anything for the final soapbox here, real quick, before I do just a couple rapid fire questions and let you go?
More than anything, you have way more power in your hands than you think. You have power in your hands to affect meaningful change in the world. You have power in your hands to affect meaningful change in your own life. The things that you want to do them. If you want to tell stories, if you want to stream, if you want to write, if you want to act, if you want to bake, if you want to dance, if you want to sing, whatever you want to do that thing, and do not let anyone or anything stop you, because you don't need anybody else's permission. If you're out of your parents' house and pay your own bills, you're your own person. Be relentless.
Right on. All right, so rapid fire questions. You ready?
My body's ready.
Playing a game or GMing?
I always said I love them equally, but the truth is, every time I've had the chance to do either, I've picked GMing 100% of the time. I have never opted to play when I couldn't run the game. So,
favorite character you've played in the last fight in your public life?
Baron Victor Temple.
Based. Do you have a favorite game you've run off camera?
I don't run games off camera anymore. Actually, that's not true. The Patreon games were all off camera. Especially there was a very calamitous final event that I spent almost a year building up to, and it was huge when it all finally went down.
I think chat games onto the fact that there are actually two of you. Favorite game you've run on camera?
The Wraith the Oblivion 4-shot that I did for Q Times. That's why I keep sharing it out. That was absolutely incredible.
Do you have a project that you absolutely think you crushed and you're like, why the fuck is that the one? Like, is that the, like, why, you have a project you think you crush and people just aren't watching it as much, and that's the one? You're just like,
that's the one.
Fuck. All right. I'm going to let you go, my friend. Shout out all the things you need to shout out. What's your Patreon? How can people make sure that you keep making great content, keep representing, I think a voice we need to hear more of in this community, so on and so forth, my friend.
I appreciate that. I don't have a personal Patreon anymore at this exact moment, but the Black Dice Society has one. Just follow me on the Tweetagrams at BDaveWalters, and if you see something come across the timeline that seems interesting, just click like or comment. The algorithm rewards it. That's it. And just keep moving forward. That's all.
Right on. Mm-hmm. All right. Chat gang, you know this part. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. You are the show within the show, the reason I do this thing. Remember to drink your milk, pay your taxes, be excellent to yourself and each other, and vote. I know the anarchist is telling you to vote. If the anarchist is telling you to vote, that's... you know, it's pretty bad out there. So do that shit. All right. Good night, everybody. B-Dave, thank you so much for being on with me tonight.
Thank you for having me, man.
All right. Peace.